right, good afternoon, everybody, or good evening. I was taking a look here at this high abdomen adjustment that I was working with. This book has some information on some areas that I deal with personally, and I thought I might share this with you as I am thinking out loud and talking about it. It has some figure evaluations. This is from my regular book that I always use, which is I think I'll put it in the description of this video. But anyway, it says that abdomen contours and it's higher than the waist, and that there's more weight above the waistband because of less muscle strength, which is the case that mine has, and the length and width of this here part kind of lengthens the crotch in the front, which is what I've been having some problems with. So I thought I might mention this and show you some areas that probably need to be considered for me as well as you now that I'm looking at it. Now, there's not a lot I can say about what's going on over here because I don't have the book in front of me, but I know what I'm looking at when it tells you how to make these adjustments. Once you look at the techniques, sometimes people have, I can see here that my belly sticks up higher above the waist than normal. For people who usually have more below here, as far as the waist is concerned, below the waistline. But mine is actually above the waist. So this is an area that I deal with often when I wear a dress. It leans forward and it just sticks out. It's not as major as some people might consider it to be, but this is something that you see in a sheath dress more so than anything. There's this little tightness across the front. Sometimes it's not tight. Sometimes what it does is it just causes the front of the dress to pull up a little bit and make it uneven here. But sometimes it may cause problems in the back here, to be like a sway back. Sometimes it's not. It just may be a little bit of extra weight in the front of your body. That's all it is. Just a little extra weight, and everything else is the same with no problem at all. So let's go over the adjustments it tells you to make. If you're doing ready to wear, you're going to open up the darts. You're going to probably open up the front seam if you can. Not very much that can be done as far as that is concerned because it is lifting the front up, like I said, because of the shape of the body. But here you can look at the adjustments that you would make on the actual pattern if you were working with it. Let's say the pattern is laying flat. Here you would make the darts narrow to give yourself more room, but you would also lengthen the front of the bodice because that bodice is too short because it has to go out further than the front or the back. So you're looking at that, and that back is doing what it's supposed to do, but the front is too short because it needs to go over more of the body underneath the bust. So you need to lengthen that. And this is where your length from your shoulder across your bust to your waist comes in when you're doing any kind of measurements and checking that. You'll see that change. So you would need to keep that in mind because that is how you're going to know what length you're going to need between these points. It'll actually take care of itself. But if you are making a bodice block or something like that and you see that it's too short across here and it's pulling up in the front, then that is truly what is going on. This area here is not long enough for your body. The side seam right there. When you're making the bodice block or the garment, whatever you're working on, you got to keep that in mind so you'll be able to include the length in the front. And if you do end up with a little bit of extra going on in the back, then you could just take that out, some at the top of that, and then you could take some of it out at the back of the skirt, which is what they show here. If you can see this area here, they're actually overlapping this. That is where it's coming out at the back and giving you more room at the front. Now, if it's wider and more wide at the bottom, then of course you're going to have to open this part up here. Let's just say that's at the abdomen. That's going to have to be open. Even though it may look like it's throwing off the grain line or the fold line, because you're adding this extra wedge here, it's not going to throw it off because you're still folding, you're still cutting it on the fold. Okay, so not much else to talk about here, except you can see where this little bit is extra. You have to widen or give yourself more, open those darts a little more, and in the front raise or open and give yourself a wedge to make it longer above the actual waistline here. It's making this part longer and that part like that, and then it's going down. That's the yellow section here. So that's why you're giving yourself more room across there, and it'll help it to take care of that length from your shoulder seam. And it may not look like it's, it may not look like it's straight, but it is. It's going to be straight. Okay, and that's how it ends up being straight. It's also the lower abdomen curve is the same exact thing. You got the extra under here. This looks straight, it's flat, but then you have the curve coming out there, so you need to make sure that you have room. In this particular case, however, especially if you're dealing with pants, this is going to lengthen your crotch. It is truly going to lengthen the crotch, and you have to open and give yourself a wedge in the front, and then you have to give yourself more room in between the legs underneath. We could talk about that more later, but pay attention and take a screenshot of what you see here as far as what to do with your trial test garment. And also if you're going to make any ready-to-wear alterations on skirts and stuff, because sometimes you can put a gusset in the middle here to give yourself room in between. And if you have room in the seam allowance, sometimes you can get this extra space by utilizing the seam allowance here. Hopefully that's in your pants if you buy pants like that. And then, of course, skirts, the problems are they ride up, they're going to ride up looking for something smaller. And then you're going to have pants with the waistline pulling down and diagonal wrinkles that form in your growing area. So the low abdomen needs to have more fabric. That's what it is. You just got to have more fabric for this area here. That's all it is. Everything else is the same. You just need to have more room here. And I think that's where it's hard to wear like a pencil skirt, because you don't want it pulling under. If you don't have a problem with that, then more power to you. But, that's something that people want to have their stuff just hanging straight down. When you look at your figure, you look at the area that they talk about here. The lower abdomen protrudes more than average, ideal, and drops below the crotch, which is right at the bottom here. So your crotch level is there, and that's why you have to include that in your crotch curve. So in order to include that in your crotch curve, you got to do it like this. Okay, and that does make it a little bit harder, but it just lengthens the crotch curve. There may be more weight deposit and less muscle tone. Of course, that's what the case is. We usually just have more weight right up in here. They call that a tummy apron. And the length and depth of the body is increased over the dropped area, which of course we already see. It's increased over this dropped area here, the length and width. So you see that length and width is crossed here and there, and then the length is much longer. So it goes from here and it's much longer. So if we did the back, you can see the difference. All right, so that's something to keep in mind. I hope that helped you guys out. You guys have a wonderful day, evening, and afternoon. I shall see you on the other side. Talk to you later. Bye.